Welcome, our fellow lovers of love, and thank you for joining us on yet another excursion through the stream of consciousness down the river of tranquility to fill the lake of life with love.
And thank you, our friends of love, for joining us tonight. That's Lubby over there. I'm Jazz, and we are here tonight to talk about, parental hypocrisy is probably a bit of a misnomer. I was in a hurry when I tried to name tonight's show, and I couldn't quite think of the exact term I was looking for, so I took something that came close. Because, as a parent, we are often hypocrites, right? If you drink and you smoke and you tell your teenager you shouldn't drink or smoke because it's bad for you, bad for your long-term decisions and all the honest things that we tell our children, it's you're a flaming hypocrite, right? And of course you are, but you're a hypocrite based out of experience and knowledge that, it leads you to this weird spot, where, you smoke or you drink or you do things that you suggest your children shouldn't be doing, right? You engage in behaviors that you suggest your children shouldn't do. And drinking or smoking are the obvious ones, right? Take your pick of what you're smoking. Take your pick of what you're drinking. But, whether it's too much soda and you tell your kids you can't have soda, or whether you drink too much coffee while you're restricting your kids from having caffeine, whatever it is, you can find yourself as a parent in these little,
hypocrisies.
Bouts of hypocrisy, but it's not really hypocrisy in those situations. You're passing on hard-earned experience, right? It's not so much hypocrisy as you're trying to pass on hard-earned experience. Or in my case, you tell your children that, it's best to wait till you can make rational decisions about these things. And then, life is hard enough. Engaging in these certain behaviors makes your life harder. And so, I suggest that you don't, that you refrain from it, at least until you're a responsible adult, and then you can do it responsibly. And that's how I approached it. But that's someone who's smokes marijuana, daily. That's a hard thing to give your kids an anti-drug message, but they shouldn't. Even though I use marijuana largely as self-medication for anxiety disorder, it's still, a child sees that you're smoking pot. And it's not always medication. And so how do you deal with that hypocrisy? and so, that's kind of a constant thing, parental hypocrisy. How do you deal with that? What level's too much? How much hypocrisy is too much? And at the same time, I'm kind of contemplating this for this week's show. A friend, someone in my acquaintance circles, right? She complains about Gen Xers advocating for war, which is fair enough. Then that particular demographic annoys her. Now, being a Gen Xer, I don't know many Gen Xers advocating for war. But as I'm going through this, I read an article about someone my age, a parent my age, who essentially chaperoned her now adult child on a spring break visit.
Oh no, I read that article. It's worth a read. And she is unapologetic.
And she's also aware of it. And that makes it doubly worse. If you kind of weren't aware of, you kind of blindly bouncing around in your hypocrisy. But she's proud of her hypocrisy. And it's not just that. What are we doing what have we done? We complain about these young kids these days and how they don't take responsibility for themselves, or they have or they live in fear, or all the various complaints. But who raised them that way? You're helicoptering your now adult child on a spring break while you're sitting there proud of yourself for going on your spring break all by yourself, smoking and doing all the various things that, we tell our children they shouldn't be doing because, we've learned our hard lessons. And it boggles my mind. It's like, God, I hate my own generation. I want to throw them through the window. But, I didn't raise my kids like that. So it's not a generation. It's just there's this goofy helicopter parent mindset, but you're not helping your kids. You're not actually keeping them safe.
They're not ready for the world.
Yeah, but if they're not ready for the world, whose fault is that?
I know, that's what I mean. That's your job, is to make it, when you have a child, it's to make them into a fully functional adult. That's your job.
It's to make it so you don't have to go down to Florida with them. When they're 18, out of high school and all that, you don't have to go on vacations with them to make sure they're safe, because you've raised them properly to, even when they're behaving in ways that you prefer they not, you do it responsibly. Like if you're going to go out on a night of drinking and drink too much, you use Ubers. You don't drive yourself. Okay, I'd prefer you not go out and drinking too much, but hey, at least you're going to do it responsibly, right? How are we supposed to learn these lessons if we don't ever allow them to practice? And the thing is, life isn't as dangerous as we think it is. Life was more dangerous back in the day when she was off running out and by herself. And it's not that, well, I was fine. That's not what this is. This is, at some point, your goal as a parent is to raise your children to flee the nest, so you no longer have to raise them. And if you're literally refusing to let go of them, they can't even go on a week's vacation with their friends on spring break, which is something you dang well know what happens because you've gone there, which in a sense scares you, but you survived and you've raised them. So did you raise them right or did you not? And here's the thing. She thought she's a mile and a half away from their house, right? So from their thing. So they weren't like spying on them. But if something happened, they were close by. If something happened, you being close by wasn't going to do a damn thing. Being a mile and a half away might as well be 10 or 100 or 1,000. Right? There's nothing you can do unless you're going to put them in the bubble and then walk around them and escort their bubble for the rest of their lives. When are you going to let them go? There's an old saying, if you love something, you let it go. If it loves you, it comes back willingly. You don't have to hold on to it. The tighter you try to squeeze, the more likely you are to let them go. It's like try to hold on to a fistful of sand. How do you do it? Do you hold on to it tight or do you loosely cup it?
I think for a lot of women that do this, their identity is so wrapped up in being a mother. And as a mom, your role changes when they become adult children. And that's part of life. This is what's supposed to happen. That's healthy.
Yeah, this is kind of the thing. This is supposed to happen. They're supposed to go off and explore the world and find their own boundaries and find out who they are. And they can't do that with you hovering over them. Or if they're looking for your approval, or they're trying to figure ways to get out from under your nose. Or it's just, you're not teaching them to be an adult, is what you're doing. You're actually teaching them to continue to be a child longer. Accidentally. You're not doing it on purpose, right? Let's not fool anybody. It's not like you're deliberately trying to keep them, but that's the end result. Simply because they don't have a chance to practice being adults. One of the things I always tried to do to my kids, successfully or not, was treat them a little older than they were. It was good for their psyche. It gave them something to live up to. Made them feel proud that they earned it. They were practicing. They were continually practicing being older than they were. Eventually, it pays off. It might be till they're 30, but eventually it pays off. Hey, my boys, man, they're immature, so a year older than they were. It's boys are crazy. They're all good kids. I jest, but we all evolve at our own pace. There is no script, but you can hurt it. All right. So what do we got next? So, but by the way, and just to kind of wrap that up, don't go on spring break with your children. Let them go. And if you say, well, I'm friends with my kid, I'm not going as a mother, I'm going as a friend. Don't go. Let them have their own friends. And if they don't have friends, they shouldn't be going on spring break. They should be spending time building their relationship skills. Okay. 3 ways to be kind when you have no patience. You're going to have to back me up on this because I forget what the 3 ways were. I think one was build relationships, but that was the second one.
Respect before anger.
That's the one. Yeah. Which is essentially means that when you start to feel angry, understand that, show as much respect as you would want shown. Do unto others, the golden rule. All that kind of magically still applies.
Relationship building.
Yeah.
Unless you live in a very large city where you never see the same person twice, you will likely have multiple encounters with the people you encounter.
Well, and even if you don't, maybe the person you're upset with is someone you have to work with, or someone who works in your industry, or Lord knows if you're in politics, politics makes strange bedfellows. And so, but it's also about relationships. And so, you might have to disagree with somebody on one issue where you can't find any common ground, but there's other issues where you can. And so do you want to burn your bridges on these other issues where you can work with or not? So, build some respect. Make sure that relationship isn't tarnished by, a short-term anger. Biting your tongue only hurts you. Speaking can hurt more than you. Speaking in unconsidered word can actually cause pain and cause long-term relationship damage, and you should be avoided. Okay, what's the third one?
Honey beats vinegar.
Yes.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Well, purely selfishly, just out of pure selfishness, you're more likely to get what you want if you're nice and kind and smile and try to help the person's way through. I mean, it's not altruistic. Think of it as a strategy to get what you want. It's a better strategy than not. It just is. 9 times out of 10, being nice is going to work far better than not. And that 10th time it worked. Okay, it may work that one time, but now what you've done for the future? You've hurt your relationship in the future. So, you may get what you want short term, but do you get what you want long term as well? So just, always consider the various long-term consequences, shall we say, of your words and deeds and attitudes. Okay.
I like this one. If the only kindness you can find is to not shout and scream, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
What's important is you consciously think of positive ways to redirect your frustration and anger.
Yeah, and as a trick for me, one of the things is frustration and anger can sometimes be confused. Sometimes you can feel angry when you're really frustrated. And so becoming in touch with yourself and what your real feelings are is actually important in dealing with other people. Okay. So 3 life skills. Social anxiety impairs and to it strengthens. So let's go through this one because we can tell if this one's true or not. even though I knew it's a pretty good list. So what do you got?
I lost our page. I lost our homepage.
You lost our homepage. Type in Late Night Love. It's a website. You just like any other. Sorry, technical difficulties over here. I mean, I could go it on mine, but I can't read it on my screen. So
Got it. Okay, I'm back. Okay, we're talking about three life skills social anxiety impairs, and
Yeah.
2 it strengthens.
Yeah. So the problem is I can't read the highlights on my screen yet. So
Gotcha. Social anxiety decreases social skills.
yes, because
It messes with your communication and social skills.
well, it's because you're misinterpreting the world. You're in fight or flight mode while the rest of the world is in relaxed party mode, and so you're simply interpreting the world wrong. In often cases, you're misinterpreting. Right? You're all anxious while everybody else is calm and relaxed. Right? You think everybody is staring at you and judging you, or thinking bad about you when they're really just watching you. Like they would anybody else. It's you're living in your head while everybody else is living a completely different existence. But that's, if it made sense, it wouldn't be called a disorder. I'll say that till the day I die. It's, you're just interpreting the world differently. And so because of that, it leads you to 2 things. One, you're reacting wrong because, you're missing the signals. And so you're anxious when other people are not. But secondly is when you become aware of that, you try to become somebody you're not. So you're trying to continually adjust who you are to fit in rather than just be yourself, which is the best way to fit in. The best way to fit in is to just be who you are and be yourself and be genuine. But if you're in fight or flight mode, if you're in social anxiety, you're always trying to be somebody you're not. Not out of any sense of manipulation or anything like that. Is just that's what you think you need to do. And again, because you're misinterpreting the world. So yeah, that's a very, very true. That's why they're socially awkward. So people with anxiety are socially awkward. They generally have a very small group of friends who understand them, let them be weird, accept their weirdness.
Guilty.
And yeah,
I've always been like that.
Yeah, because once you find a handful of people who accept that kind of strangeness about you, it's relaxing, and then you can genuinely be who you are, and then you end up not being so weird. It's just the way it is. You end up just being like everybody else because you can be yourself. So what's the next one?
Okay, decision making is impaired by social anxiety.
Yeah, again, because you're misinterpreting the world, and so your solutions to situations are wrong. So you come up with wrong solutions. It's sad fact of life. Yeah. Okay.
Social anxiety decreases resilience. Anxiety also reduces your ability to cope with stress and adversity. Studies demonstrate a negative correlation between social anxiety and resistance.
Well,
anxious people are often told they're overly sensitive and make a mountain out of a molehill.
Well, they are sensitive because, again, they're living in fight or flight mode. And so everything is interpreted. Is this dangerous? Do I need to run or do I need to fight? And that's a terrible way to live. And not only is it bad for your interpretations of the world, it's bad for your health because you're always under stress. Imagine living constantly under fear, continually, and the adrenaline hits and ups and downs of adrenaline. It's not a good way to live, and no one wants to be that way. And again, when you say, well, the reactions don't make sense, yeah, that's why it's called a disorder. I'm going to say that about 100 times if you talk about anxiety. If it doesn't make sense, yeah, You're right. It doesn't make sense. We know it doesn't make sense, but it is the way it is. Yeah. If it made sense, everybody could understand it. So, anyway, what are we next?
Okay, 2 positives. Social anxiety increases awareness. Most people who struggle with anxiety know it makes you overly self-aware.
Well, it's not just self-aware, which dealing with it, you have to become better self-aware to become good with it. But you become good at reading a room. Once you understand that you have anxiety, then you become good at understanding the room. So it's a strange thing. When you don't know you have an anxiety disorder, you can't read a room, you can't read people for nothing. Once you understand it and you can start interpreting what other people are being, you become very empathetic because you can see the struggles other people are going through. You can see why people are acting the way they are. You can understand it because you live it. And if you haven't lived it, your brain has written about 30 scripts in that, what happens if? And so you empathize. You can almost instantaneously empathize because you've had a script in your head that's similar to somebody else's experience. And so it's easier for you to walk into it's easier for you to shift into being empathetic. And empathy leads to understanding. And the willingness to open your mind and hear what other people are going through because, you know how life is not unique. I mean, life is unique. Everybody's journey is unique. Everybody's story, whether you can have a similar story, how that manifests inside of you and then out of you is vastly different. We can all have the exact same experience. Me and my sister raised in the same house, same parents, same generic experience. We're vastly different people. There's nothing wrong with one or the other. It just is. And, as once you become aware of your anxiety disorders, you become more empathetic to that. And that makes you understand, more aware. Okay, what's the last one?
Empathy increases with social anxiety. You just covered that.
Yeah, because they're related. It's not those two things. Just had a drink with his. Hey, Tim. We were talking about. Tim says he just had a drink with his son at dinner tonight, but he's an adult. So, thank you, Tim. Yeah, it's weird to have to sit there and I guess drinking is so common. Having a drink with your dad or your parents is weird. Being a pothead, I've never sat around and had smoked pot with my kids because my kids don't smoke pot somehow. At least not a lot. I don't know how that happened.
I don't know how that happened either.
Well, okay. My biological children don't smoke pot. My acquired children do, oddly enough. Just saying. No, that's not true because my oldest does. Anyway, that's near here and there. It's just strange how that culture is going to change in the next 10, 20 years. We'll see what the change comes. If it's more using marijuana products are more common around, we'll be treated more like alcohol. Like having a joint with your dad is going to be like having a beer with your dad. It's an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
That's how it was. Well, I don't drink, so that's how it was with my girls.
And I don't drink either, but it is what it is. All right. All right. So what else we got?
How TV can be a trauma recovery tool. Now, I like the example he gave. If you're trying to recover and from a toxic family, how do you know what a supportive family looks like? And there's a lot of good sitcoms on that are.
Well, oddly enough, you can make an argument that the sitcoms of the 70s and early 80s, all those family friendly, you know, sitcoms were actually designed to do just that. They were designed to show people how a functional family looks like. Because if you remember in the 70s, divorce rates were what? Higher than they are now. They're at over 50%. There were the single family homes, the latchkey kids. People didn't know what a functional family looked like. And so when you get the Cosby shows or Silver Spoons or, and a lot of them, they weren't, families, the Brady Bunch, these were mixed families of divorce and coming back together, broken families coming back together and healing. And just most of those shows of the 70s, even Happy Days, right? You can think of the Fonz. He was the outsider who found a family. These shows of the 70s, that's what they did in the early 80s. And then you got to shows like Married with Children, who kind of showed a more, a realistic but unrealistic version of families. It was kind of the non-functional family, but that they generally loved each other. They would argue and fight, but despite all of his attempts, Al never actually cheated on Peg. He had never attempted. He had opportunities, but never did it. Right? Despite the fact that he used to complain about Peg's wanting affection, but, and he used to ogle attractive women all the time. But yet, when the chances came, he always said no. Because as much as they would argue and bitter and fight, they loved each other. So even that, a dysfunctional family, they show that a dysfunctional family can still love each other and they can still honor each other. A lot of people complain about those sitcoms. But, they served a purpose. They really did. They served a purpose. And I think society has a lot to be thankful for those. Even in their imperfections, even in their goofy anti-drug messages that backfired, they did a lot. They showed that you can integrate families. They showed that families can come together and be functional. They showed that, dysfunctional families can still love each other and pull through and pull together when needed, even without overtly sending that message. It's great art, and it's misunderstood, to say the least. Okay. Anything else? But you like, the other part of it is you can find something that is comforting, right? Something that, if you have anxiety disorders and you just all you want to do is sit down and relax, and you don't want to be excited. You don't want it to be, you just turn on something that I watch Red, Green, or Top Gear when that kind of thing is. When I'm in that kind of a mood. You have yours. I call them crying movies, and I joke about it, but I know what you use them for. It's
They're period dramas, mostly Jane Austen book-based. They're classic pieces of art. I don't understand why you don't appreciate them.
Because there's 3 stages of these movies. Right? There's 3 stages of the movies. There's before the crying, there's the crying, and then there's the after the crying. And then it goes to the before the crying, and then the crying, and then the after the crying. That's 3 stages of the movies. I get it. Women like these things. Fine, guys like wrestling. It's the same thing but different. It literally is. It's a stunt show with reasons for being a stunt show, with goofy reasons for being a stunt show. And your period dramas, they're goofy reasons to dress up in goofy clothes and act like women from the older days. Oh, I've got the vapors. Someone come rescue me.
I'm telling you, we lost something when we gave up fainting.
But I get it, right? You like the kind of drama, the boys like kind of physical drama, the girls like the emotional drama, and so you've got crying movies and wrestling. That's that's kind of the extremes, right? Boys are physical, girls are emotional, and so yeah, I get it. It feeds you what you need. You need your break tonight, or we hanging through?
Yeah, I'm going to take a break. You want to read the basic personal rights?
What basic personal right? Oh,
Is self-care selfish?
is self-care selfish? Yeah, I'll talk about it. Well, I was going to go to questions because is
All
self-care
right.
selfish? I don't know. Well, because I accidentally closed my browser, so it's just I'm having troubles here. We're having troubles with our browsers tonight over here. What the heck? All right, so no, self-care is never selfish. I mean, good Lord, if you're not allowed to take care of yourself, if you're not allowed to spend some time on yourself, if you're not allowed to take care of let me put it this way. If you break your arm and you get it in the cast and you take the 6 weeks to get it healed and then you go to the rehab, is that being selfish? Is it being selfish to give your body time to heal after a trauma, say after a car accident, and you're just not right for a few months? Is that being selfish? To tell us, no, I can't help you move because I'm sore from the car accident. Is that being selfish? Just because we can't see what is not working properly doesn't mean it's selfish to take care of it properly. It's actually more important. I can't see my liver, but yet I know I need to take care of that. And so it's never selfish to engage in self-care. It's selfish for other people to ask you to not care for yourself and help them. That's what's selfish.
Well, it's a very loving act, really, because you can't have enough to give if your cup is empty.
Yeah, well, and especially if you have things like we've talked about anxiety a lot, if you don't care for yourself, you will break down physically, not just mentally, you will physically break down as well. And so self-care is just care. It's no different than exercise. It's no different than taking care of a broken bone. It's no different than getting cancer treatment. It's no different than anything else. It's no different than me taking my stupid pill every day so my liver doesn't kill me. It's, is that being selfish? So just because it's a mental issue doesn't mean it's selfish to take care of it. It's absurd. And the fact that we even ask these kind of questions is a sign of, sign of something. But anyway, you can go to latenightlove.us and you can find links to all the articles that we use to discuss our topics. And you can find, I didn't post it, but you will be able to find links to our newsletter. You can go join and sign up for our newsletter, which at the moment really just gives you links to all of this stuff. So if you don't have to catch it live, you can catch it in your email inbox. And you can find us on Facebook at The Late Night Love. You can find us at latenightlove.us. You can find us on social media networks and your favorite podcast service. Okay, all that is done. And you can send Lovey a dear lovey letter at love@latenightlove.us.
I'd love to hear from you.
And you can find me on Twitter at JazzRack. I should actually just change that or something. I don't know. I'm going to find something to do with that. All right. So, tonight's set of questions. What do we got, Lovey?
What is something you will never understand? I try to wrap my head around the concept of time, and it eludes me every time. I just start feeling my brain starting to wrap around it, and it slips away.
That's because time doesn't exist. Once you accept that, then it makes sense. But anyway, time is an invention of man. It doesn't exist in nature. And so, therefore, that's why we can't understand it. And it's quite simple. Something we as human measure. It doesn't exist by itself. But anyway, that's a whole another thing. What I don't understand. There's lots of things I don't understand. Frankly. I don't understand people's proneness to violence. I don't understand why we don't accept the fact that people experience food differently. I don't understand why people don't accept that, the broad sexual spectrum is no different than the broad personality spectrum, and all these things interact in different ways. I'll never understand why we just don't accept that the diversity of people, thought, and desires is more diverse than we can imagine. Ultimately. That's so there. If you want to get all metaphysical or whatever the hell word I'm looking for. I don't think that's the right word, but whatever. All right, what's next?
How can I be happy alone?
Well, oddly enough, you can never be happy until you're happy alone.
I love my own company.
Yeah, well, if you're looking for somebody else or something else to make you happy, you're never going to be happy. Happiness comes from within. And so actually learning to be happy with yourself is the key to being happy. You have to learn to be happy with who you are. And if you're not happy with who you are, then start making changes to become happy with who you are. And then you will be happy alone. There's no steps. There's no 10-step program that we can give you. This is time in the mirror. You have to design this path on your own. What are you unhappy about? What is it about you? It's not an easy question. Pick the easy stuff to start with. That's my suggestion. Find out what you don't like about yourself. Find the easiest thing to change and start there. And once you start having a few successes, hey, I only brush my teeth twice a week. I want to do it 5 times a week. Great. Now 5 times is better than 2. So great. Maybe next month you can go to 10 times a week. Then maybe next month you can go to twice a day. Right? That's a success. And then as you build on those successes, you'll start to become happy with yourself because you will starting to become the person you want to be rather than sitting where you are. And that's the way to do it. Or it's the way to start. Okay. What you got?
My mother is having a financial problem and she wants to sell our house. I can't imagine why she would do that. I don't know how to stop her. What should I do?
Well, I'm assuming nothing. Your mother's having a financial problem, and a financial problem needs to be solved. If she can't afford the house you're living in, unless you're in some position to help her afford it, right? Unless you can be paying rent, and I'm suspecting that you're younger than that. You're still in high school, just because of the way it's phrased. There's nothing you can do, and there's nothing you should do. Moving is part of life. It's terrible. It's painful, but it's not always bad. Because depending upon where you are, she might be able to sell her house, move to someplace much cheaper, and completely change the lifestyle she's living. Remove all kinds of stress. She's living in, say, the Bay Area of California and can barely afford rent, and then all of a sudden moves to, I don't know, Lincoln, Nebraska, where it's much cheaper. You can buy a bigger house for a third or less of the cost. Go to nicer schools, and she's able to work remotely. So her lifestyle will improve. Your lifestyle will improve. It's a no-brainer. If you're worried about it, you can talk to her about it. But, don't try to change your mind. Just try to understand it. And help you become comfortable with it. Because my guess is, there's nothing you can do. She's doing it because she has to, not necessarily because she wants to. Okay, what we got?
How do Toyota cars last 300,000 miles?
Because you properly maintain them. And it's not just Toyotas. Any car will last 300,000 miles or more if you maintain them properly. It's the willingness to put in the maintenance. That's really all it is. Maintenance is not sexy, and sometimes it's expensive. But if you want your car to last 300,000 miles, you have to replace things like, how many times you have to redo the brakes after 300,000 miles. You probably need transmission service at least once in that. A new radiator. All these things have to be replaced. A couple batteries. It's not like they just last without maintenance. So you have to be willing to actually put in the time and money to fix it. And you missed a question, by the way.
I'm 32 and I don't have a career. I don't know what I want to do for the rest of my life. This has been causing me grief. How do I find my career path?
Well, without a recommendation, I recommend you look up, what was it called? Future Authoring Program. No, maybe it's not the Future Authoring Program. Yeah, start there. And you kind of start to design your future. Just search for the Future Authoring Program. But really, it's the career is not necessarily a thing. Most people don't have a career. Most people have jobs. Okay, so the fact that you don't have a career isn't necessarily the problem, as long as you have your direction elsewhere, right? A lot of people work a job so they can have their direction, right, outside of that job. That's why you have these people with these real intense hobbies. You build 4-wheelers or whatever. You spend just as much time on their hobby as they do at work, because their job isn't necessarily a career. It's a job. It's a way to fund the things that you really want to do. Because the things you really want to do don't pay their money. So they have to do it the other way around. So not having a career isn't necessarily the problem. It's not having a direction, not having meaning. That's the problem. And so find some meaning in your life. And then you will have direction. And then what you do to earn money is a different question. It's what you're doing to earn money. It's not necessarily what your career is. Now, maybe it's a career. Maybe you do. Maybe you find your career while searching for that. I don't know. But, start with a search for meaning. Because that's what's going to make you fulfilled and satisfied. Okay.
I told my boss that I'm going to resign, and he fired me on the spot. Can he legally do that as I resigned first?
Well, it doesn't actually make a difference. It may make a difference if you need unemployment. If you need unemployment, you actually probably want to be fired in that kind of situation, because it's probably, not fired with cause and all that kind of thing. But if you've already got another job, what do you care? It doesn't matter. It's one of those things that's not relevant. I quit, you're fired. Doesn't matter. You no longer work there. That's the only point. Now, a lot of companies, you'll put in like a resignation, you work your 2 weeks, and a lot of places don't want you working there those 2 weeks. You got short-timer disease. Maybe you're a disgruntled employee. They just don't want to take the risk. So off you go. If it's a good place, they'll pay you for part, all that 2 weeks or some of it or not. If they're not, they won't. But you're leaving. So what do you care? This is one of those things I never understood. You're walking out the door and you're going to be mad because they told you to walk out the door. Just don't get it. Yeah, you were leaving. There's reasons you were leaving. This is why. It's now in your rearview mirror. That's all I got to say about that. Just don't spend time on it. Okay, what do you got?
Why are mothers expected to take care of their newborns right after giving birth? Shouldn't they be given more time in the hospital to heal?
Well, because the baby needs taken care of.
if you've had a really rough time, you get more time in the hospital. But if it's a normal birth, there's no reason why you can't go home as long as you have support at home.
No. I get it that you want to make sure that there's nothing medically wrong. And so you want to be careful because, the birth death rate used to be outrageous and now it's not. And so, okay, you want to be very careful. But at the same time, you don't want to. Hospitals are not places for healthy people to want to be in. You want to spend as least amount of time in a hospital as possible. You just do. Now, if you need it, you need it. Great. But if you're healthy, get you and that baby out the hospital. You know why? Because sick people are in hospitals. There's diseases and germs and all kinds of stuff. And no matter how careful they're going to be, there's still sick people in hospital. And you just don't want to spend the time in there. And we could argue that, humans have been giving birth. And, there's the old saying that you used to give birth out in the rice fields while they're picking rice and then just put the baby on the back. And it's a little bit hypocritical, but it's also a little bit true. Life is brutal back in the day. We have comforts. But that baby needs you. And, motherhood starts before that baby is born.
Yes, it does.
And there's no days off. There's no days off in parenthood. So,
Nope. It's a constant state of worry. Even when they're grown, it never ends.
As we found out in the first subject, some of us worry more than others. All right, so where do we get this?
How do you keep your feelings in check in a casual relationship?
You don't.
You can't. Good luck. I never was able to.
Well, if it's a genuinely casual relationship, you won't have feelings, right? They just won't develop because that's not what that person's there for. But if there's any type of actual genuine relationship there, you will have one. You just will. That's why people only have, one night stands or maybe twice. That's why they don't spend more than a couple times with one person, because they well-developed feelings and they know it. It's a sad life to live, frankly, but you're allowed to live a sad life, or what other people feel sad. Maybe it fulfills you. I don't know. Most of us need solid relationships to have a fulfilling life, but diversity of humankind, I'm sure there's a few people out there who can be fulfilled without it. I just can't imagine it. But the question is, do you want to? Do you want to go through life without feeling?
Didn't you ever have a period in your life where you did casual relationships?
No, not really. We've had a couple, but not casual relationships. No. Never have time. Never have much time. But I also don't want them. So it's not what I was looking for. All right.
Well, some of us had to learn that the hard way.
Well, some of us are looking for different things.
What if you regret a life choice you made?
Well, you forgive yourself and you move on. Learn from it and move on. That's all you can do. Really. Find a way to forgive yourself. If you have to make amends to somebody, you can make amends to somebody. You can deal with that. But realistically, there's nothing you can do. You can't go back in time and change it. So you learn from it. You forgive yourself for being stupid. And you move on. You go forward. What else are you going to do? You're going to flog yourself? You're going to punish yourself for the rest of your life over it? Is that going to help? I don't think so. Okay.
What if you're angry at your adult child?
And? I mean, I suppose it depends on what But you've got to figure out, is it worth it?
It's generally not worth it. I usually keep my thoughts to myself.
But, it becomes pick your battles. Are you angry? You're frustrated. Why are you angry? Because are they doing something you think they shouldn't be doing? Or are they, robbing banks? What are they doing? Are they like this first person? Maybe maybe your child went on a big spring break vacation and told you to kick rocks and not come, and then you're mad. or, or have they actually done something that's a genuine moral, ethical problem? You have to first decide that. So if you're angry at your adult child, you have to first find out why. Look yourself in the mirror and find out why. And is it reasonable? Because you might not be the reasonable one here. Matter of fact, you likely aren't the reasonable one. Maybe you haven't let them go. Maybe you're still treating them as a child instead of an adult. And that's why you're angry. Because as an adult child, disappointed maybe, but I'm not sure how much anger you can be unless they've done something outrageous. So that's my suggestion. If you're angry, find out why and go from there.
How do you deal with a stubborn partner?
I don't know. So how do you deal with a stubborn partner, Lovey?
A lot of patience, acceptance.
This is when we have to ask you.
I'm pretty stubborn myself.
Yeah, not really. You're not stubborn.
I'm a Taurus. I'm notorious.
In the scheme of what I've had to put up with, you're not stubborn.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm just saying. Now, this piece of meat here is a stubborn bullhead. So
you're pretty easy.
But I am pretty stubborn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pretty knuckleheaded.
Especially when it comes to seeing doctors.
Yeah. There you go. There you go again. Never leave me alone on that one. See, that is what do you do?
I'm allowed to say something. I have had to wait sometimes years for you to see a doctor about a medical problem. I have watched you go down to the very depths before you will say, wave the white flag.
Like I said.
And I say nothing.
Patience, understanding, compassion, empathy. And love is really what you do with a stubborn partner, because they're not going to really change. They can, soften a little bit, but they're not going to change. It's in their nature. They're always going to have that. They may pick less things to be stubborn about, but they're always going to be stubborn on a thing or two. They will pick their hill. They will pick their hill and die on it. Trust me. Well, almost die on it. Shall I say? I know that from experience.
How do you overcome fear? Well, not really.
You don't overcome it. You become stronger in the face of it. That's the simple truth. Now, whether it's exposure therapy or whether it's understanding it, and just powering your way through it, there's different techniques, and you have to pick the one that works for you on any given situation. But you don't overcome it. You just become stronger in the face of it. It's a different thing. I still hate putting eye drops in my eyes. 2 weeks later? I do it. Still hate it.
You're doing it yourself now.
Yeah, I know. Still hate it. But, stronger in the face of that irrational fear. Parts of it I know it's irrational fear. And so but I guess I was about to say it's easier, but it's so I can understand it. So it's stronger at going through it. So it's a different thing. It's not easier. I'm just better at it. Is the other way. Yeah, you just get better at it. Okay.
What makes a present special?
The thoughts behind it, the meaning, the fact that someone cared. I'm not one who actually needs presents, so it's not, I get what I need from the people I need it from continually throughout, time. So, presents, I'm not going to say are meaningless because that's not true. They mean a lot, but I don't need them to have the meaning. You know what I mean?
The meaning of what?
What the presents mean. I don't need the actual, I don't need a physical present to have the feeling.
I understand.
So that's all.
I like flowers.
But it's the fact that someone was thinking about you is the.
Well, yeah. When you have a couple extra dollars and you're in line at the grocery store, I know you were thinking of me.
Yeah, it's just that's the thing that someone was thinking of you. All right. How do you approach changing habits? Well, that's an interesting one because for me, I change habits. It seems like I change it all at once, but really I spend a lot of time contemplating. And then whoa, that's right. I can't do that. This is not a real table. I have a lot of time contemplating before something kind of pushes that equation to action. And I'm not entirely sure when that is because it's not a plan. It's just, think about it for a while. And then sometimes I take advantage of an opportunity. So an opportunity like, well, I haven't had the opportunity to have I was in the hospital, so I didn't drink much soda for, a week or so. So I just didn't start up again. Right? It's easier that way. But at the same time, I had been thinking about, drinking so much soda is not good for my health. I'm going to have to stop and change my habit at some point. I've been thinking about that for months, been contemplating it. Some people would call it visualization techniques, but I don't visualize things. So it works different. It's the same function, but it looks differently in my head than it does in most people. But visualize yourself changing your habit. And then when you're ready to change your habit, it's easier to actually change the habit. So I do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I'm bad about the discipline to do it by force. Okay.
You missed one. How do you know you are a success?
Well, you get to define success. That's how you know. No one else gets to define success for you. You get to define success for you. Success is your definition. I don't get to define success. She doesn't get to define success. The world doesn't get to define success. At the end of your life, when you cross to the golden arches or the golden gates.
The golden gates, golden arches. That's McDonald's.
Yeah, I know. It's late. It's been a long day. But when you cross the golden threshold, whatever it is you want to pass, you define your life as success. No one else does. There's no one. Maybe your God gets to be the judge of your life, right? That's it. No one else judges. And so if you're a success, you know it. You know if you've become the person you want to be. You don't need outside approval. When you get to that, that's when you're a success. All right, we got room for two more.
What's the best way to comfort someone who is upset?
Listening.
Yep.
Shut up and listen.
Just be there.
Shut up and listen. They'll tell you if they need to hear something. do well. And if you're not sure, you can ask. Say, do you need a solution, or do you need me just to listen? And they'll tell you. But frankly, just listen. And then you get to, if there's a pause in the conversation, you say, do you need a response, or do you need me just to listen? Be there for them, not for you.
You do great with that. You've asked me, I don't know what to do right now. What do you need from me?
Yeah, because I don't know.
Do you need to be alone? Do you need me to hang out with you?
Yeah, sometimes I get mixed signals. Okay, which one? So I just ask. I'm getting some mixed signals here, woman. But now, of course, you ask much kinder than that. You don't go, I'm getting mixed signals here, woman. I need you to tell me what you want. No, you approach it a little kinder than that, right? Say, I don't know what to do here, Lubby. What do you need from me? Yeah, that's what you do. So, just listen. Is the 9 times out of 10, just listening, having a compassionate ear, genuinely wanting to be there and listen to them is, all it takes.
Okay, last question. Is it normal to talk to yourself?
God, I hope so.
I hope so.
I have long, drawn out conversations with myself.
I find myself highly entertaining.
Hey, let's think. If I sit here and listen to myself talk here, just think of how much I listen to myself talk everywhere else. I love listening to myself talk. But also, part of the anxiety disorder and the way through it is through essentially self-talk. You continually walking yourself through everything.
That's what I do.
Because, you have to make sure you're not misinterpreting the world. No, that's a misinterpretation. Are you sure about that? It's a continual dialogue. And sometimes you're working through things and it works as a dialogue in your head. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're talking to yourself, there's not other personalities in there. You're not talking to Joe and Sally and Bob. That's great. As long as it's you. Right?
Sometimes it feels like the subconscious can feel like a separate voice, but it's not.
Yes, we call it because it's a counter voice, right? It's something like arguing with yourself. It's like you've got that arguing with yourself in there. And so it can feel like there's a second person in there, but it's you. But it's you. It doesn't have a person name. It doesn't have another name. It doesn't have another personality. It's you. It's just that yin and yang of you trying to figure out this complicated subject or this complicated situation. And so you're kind of working it out in your brain, like playing ping pong with your yin and yang, rather than Bob, Sally, and George all sitting there giving their 2 cents in. That's not the same thing as talking to yourself. That's a different kind of talking to yourself. And good Lord, get professional help if you've got more than you in there. Because you need it.
Yes, indeed.
I mean, it's not, you're not less of a human being, but you need help dealing with that because it will get you eventually. So anyway, from me and Lubby, I want to thank you for joining us tonight. You can find us at latenightLove.us. You can send Lubby a letter at love@latenightLove.us. You can find me at Jazzrack. You can find us on all your favorite social media networks and your podcast services. So from me and Lubby, good night and love everybody.
Good night.